So forgive me for a little bit of an unusual intro to this week's video, but I just want to show you one of the other jobs that I've been occupying my time with in the last couple of weeks. Is this, making these little charcuterie boards. So some of you may know we're getting married, Pascal and I, at the end of August. And so one of the jobs that I was asked to complete was just make these up. So all of our homemade charcuterie, cured pork products, we can lay these out for our guests, we can put them on the table, and some people might want to take these away. So these are just some blue gum rounds that I cut, hopefully pretty neatly at about 1.5 inches, dress them up, and they've come up like this. There you go. Something else that's been going on. The last 3 weeks, we've processed about 300 kilos of our own homemade pork, smoked that, cured it, it's hanging up now, so we've been really busy. But anyway, that aside, let's go and have a look at where we are with the boat build. The last time I left you, we had done the centerboard. We've been doing some fiberglassing. That's going fairly well. I haven't gone too crazy with that because I'm still waiting for some stainless bolts to show up. So they're holding me up on the actual, putting together the centerboard case, which is what we were talking about. I thought this week we might have a look at making a scarfing jig, because I'm going to have to join up some pretty big lengths of plywood, and I think I've got a fairly good idea of how I'm going to do it, so we might have a look at that. Is it going to involve a router, Troy? You probably know it is, so let's go and have a look how many times I can use a router in this week's episode. Okay, well here's our drawing. Let's have a look at what we're in for at the moment. So this is the bottom panel to make up the hull of our boat. The frames are going to be attached to that, and then we'll build up the boat from there. So you wouldn't really call this the floor of a boat, the bottom panel of the hull. There's quite a bit of information here, and we'll just have a quick look at it. So we've got our center line of the boat that we're going to take our measurements here off to get that nice fair curve that you see. Obviously there's no numbers up here because it's exactly the same as that. Boats are symmetrical. And to get our length, it just says here grid 250. So each one of these little notches along the center line is 250 mil from this point here. How long is it? So it's 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, and it just says here NB with an exclamation mark, so note 200. You've got to get that right. You wouldn't have put an exclamation mark otherwise. So what's it going to be? 4,700. Well, that's okay because our sheets are 2,400. It even says it here that this is the end of the first sheet, and then coming this way, we're going to have a 6-to-1 scarf joint. So we're going to chew up a little bit of this back panel to overlap here, and that'll give us our length. So 2 sheets of 2,400 will be 4,800. Our bottom panel is going to be 4,700. So there'll be a little bit of wiggle room there, but not a ton of it. Just before we go, how wide do I need to make this scarfing jig? So the largest number coming out from the center line is 481, which is what that's 4 is 8 plus 80 is, so 960 plus 1, 962. I was just doubling that. Okay, so that's all pretty straightforward. I just doubled that number. So we need to make our scarfing jig that wide at the moment. I'll make it in such a way that we can unscrew it and reduce it as well, because later on we'll also be planking the hull with plywood, and if we want a plank of plywood going along, we're going to have to scarf them together anyway. So we'll make this jig nice and accurate right now. One thing, we want this floor to be straight. We don't want it to have a banana bend in it. Not floor panels, sorry. And also our later hull panels, I'd like them to be schmicko. Maybe I better just have a bit of a pause. People, if you don't understand if you've never heard of what a scarf join is, and there's people with all experience levels that join me, so sorry for those people that already know. But let me just get the cobwebs and dust off this thing. So if you wanted to join 2 bits of sheet material, and you did it like that with just this small surface area here to glue on, it would fail very quickly. It's just not enough there. Let me get rid of that. If you overlap them, like that, you would have plenty of glue surface, but now you've got these steps. So a scarf joint is when you cut a long ramp in one and you cut a long ramp in the other. So you still get this nice long glue join, but you get a nice smooth transition. So you can still have one long flat sheet, which is what we need for the bottom of our boat. So I said I wanted 6:1, so why don't I just draw a line there so I know where I'm at. And that is 2 inches from that end. So if I measure 12 inches along the base here and just mark it, there we go. That will give me a 6:1 ratio grade. Just like that. That's as easy as it comes, isn't it? 2 times 6 is 12. You could also do 1 inch and 6 inches, and the slope would be exactly the same. There's one. And there's 6. There we are. I just wanted a longer ramp. That's why I did it like that. And also, just using those big things at the moment, a little bit dark. I'm getting old, my eyesight. I like using inches for that. So there we go. We've got a nice long ramp. I'll cut that out, and then I'll use what I cut out to replicate another one with the pattern following bit. So just one point, even with that circular saw, I can see that there's a little bit of pencil line there and also here. So it's not perfect. I can make it perfect though. I've got a bit of ply here which has still got its factory edge. So why don't I just put it there where it's touching that bit of pencil line and there. Make sure no low points are excluded. And we'll get it perfectly straight using the router. I don't want any dips at all when I'm making my scarf joint. I want it perfect because you're using the same jig to do 2 sides. So any imperfections will be magnified, and I just can't afford to have any voids or any sources of failure. Okay, that's nice and flat. I'll just make that spot on. Okay, so I just did a very quick outline and cut out the other half. I didn't even bother trying to get it straight down the line because I just want to get this done fast. And you can get stuff done very, very fast with a router, especially when you're just replicating bits. It does save you quite a bit of time. And lines up. Okay, once again, I'll just put that on the pattern following bit. We'll copy that. So that looks great. So that's about the quickest, easiest way I know of getting something, two items that are exactly the same. That probably took less than 5 minutes actually, so it's pretty good. Okay, so there's our ramps made. It would be really, really convenient if I could just mount them on here, but unfortunately my building jig is only 900 millimeters wide, 90 centimeters wide. What did we say that I needed? I needed 965 between centres there, so that makes it a bit tricky. What I can do though is I can always have them spread like that, and then I can have my sheet goods running out that way. But I will need to find something that is 50 centimetres, 500 millimetres high to support the other end of the ply. I don't think that's going to be very much of an issue. That looks pretty close to being like a jerry can actually, a petrol or diesel can. I'll have to have a look. But it doesn't matter, we've got enough bits of wood and everything like that to brace it up. So what I'll do is put it there. Because I'm not making a jig on a bottom piece, I can't just screw up through the bottom, so I'll need to put some side pieces on there. I do have a few bits and pieces laying around, so why don't we do that? We'll just attach some pieces at right angle, and then I'll be able to screw down through those, and I'll be able to put these anywhere I like. All right, good morning. It's a brand new day. And just before we get down and keep working on the boat, carrying on from yesterday, I just wanted to show you something. I've got our woodshed here, and I've just set a very small fire in this drum. It's burnt out. There's no more paint or anything coming off it. I've just set a small fire here, and I'm cold smoking that ham. Remember I was just saying that we made those wooden platters? Well, here's a bit of a cold smoking effort going on. So I'm just using Jarrah, a local hardwood, and it's a really nice cold smoke. So just through the day, I'll have to come back up here and just pop a little bit of wood on, just keep a low fire going and just keep that smoke rolling through the day. Usually when we're doing any given episode, it'll usually be on a limited number of subjects, but on a property like this, there's always something else going on, and it's probably good to show that. You know, there's always 3 or 4 things going on somewhere in the background whenever we're showing something in front of the camera. So I thought I'd just share this with you. And I mean, that ham is looking really great in there. I'm tempted to go and get some of the bacon that we haven't cured yet and throw it in here too. Okay, so yesterday before I knocked off, I just secured these so they are at exact right angles to this back edge of our building jig, and I made sure that they were 965, actually I made them 970 apart just to give us a bit of wiggle room, just so I can put some wedges in the ply to hold it dead steady, but we'll get to that. Now what I need to do is to make a sled that rides up and down here that we can shuttle the router back and forward. Needs to move that way and that way. I'm going to make it out of steel because I have it. You could make it out of wood, but I'm going to use this. So let's get that done, so I'm in a hurry. That's about right. Just a word of explanation, when I cut those I did leave one a little bit longer. That's just something so I can clamp this, but you'll see that when we get to it. I just wanted to just talk about very quickly a little habit that I got into a while ago, is just whenever I drill a hole in metal, just use a countersinking bit and just gently relieve it. Just slightly countersink those holes, and what it does, it carries away any burrs and things like that that are left from the drilling process. That means that when you come time to screw it on anything, there's no little bits of metal that might hold that, you know, like a millimetre apart. And it also means that you're not going to cut yourself on any little burrs. It's a nice little habit to get into. I'm sure a lot of you already do it, but I just thought I'd mention it for some people that, you know, might not be yet. Okay, with our wood clamp to these the ramps here, that means I can hopefully just put this up here, connect it, and it'll end up square. Just make sure that that is butted up there. Drill it and screw it. There we go. Yep, no binding at all. Beautiful. $115. Okay, so what I was doing then was just measuring with the verniers from this edge of the base plate to the cutting edge, and I've fixed my verniers now. I've put those screws so they're, you know, they won't move from there. It happens to be 115 millimetres. They would have made it that way so that there is a specific measure. It would have been written somewhere, but I don't know where it is. And I don't even really need to know what that number is, because now that the verniers are fixed, I can use this distance, or from that edge to that distance. I can set my metal straight edge the right distance from the line I want to cut, and then hopefully it'll cut on that line. Should we see if it works? That's where the edge is going to be. Cheers, mate. Well, that went pretty well. Okay, so the pliers pushed a little bit further than where I want it, so I'll just keep moving it back into the jig. About there, I think. So that way, when my sled is all the way at the end, where I want the scarf cut to end will be halfway. So that's about where the middle of the bit will be. So that'll be good. 23. So what I can see is that this bit here is not absolutely flat, which is a bit of a bummer. So what I will need to do is just raise these up with some shims until everything is exactly right. So this thing was a piece that I found around the farm, and I will be squaring this up to build on, but at the moment there's a little bit of, whether it's moisture or whatever, but this is just a little bit high in the middle by 1 millimetre. 1 millimetre will make a difference, unfortunately, so I'll just have to get some shims there for that. That's okay. Give it a go. Okay, so I've put the shims in there, got everything pretty much level now. So what I do want to do is find out where probably about 90 millimetres from this edge is, and I can put a line of screws there. The reason why I'm going 90 is because this scarf, the router, is just going to chew out 72 millimetres of this plywood if all goes well. Thereabouts. Why 72, Troy? Because this is a 6:1 scarf and I'm dealing with 12mm ply. So 6 times 12, 72. Beautiful. So I've measured in 72 from this edge. I've drawn a line there with a paint marker that I can see. And now I'll just make sure that the router just touches at that line. And I'll lock off my depth stop there. And now I know that it won't cut any more than that depth, but the ramp will actually bring the router blade down as we go further along. Got my clamp in place there. I've got another one here. If this moves a little bit, it doesn't matter. If it goes up, the router blade will come up and it won't cut anymore, and if it goes down, it'll just cut down a bit, but it'll cut down slope. That all looks pretty good. The other thing that I have to be careful of with this steel is, it's strong stuff, but of course it may deflect by a little bit if I put my weight on it. So this router, I'm only just guiding it. I'm not leaning on it. That's the theory anyway. We'll see how it goes. So far it's going really, really well. That's really uniform. There's a little bit left to go, and as we get nearer and nearer the end, I better take more delicate cuts, just because it's getting thin down there and it could just blow out. The exact thing I was hoping to avoid just happened. The router tore away a large part of the poorly supported plywood. Being too late to do anything more for the day, I tried gluing the scarf to see if things would still work out. Right. Oh, that was loud. Let's have a look. Oh, it's a bit early. I'll be lifting weights. Oh, well, that goes to show what a great thing baking paper is with epoxy. It's not that it only sticks a little bit, it doesn't stick at all. Well, that was a pretty good impromptu stress test for this join, and it's come through in flying colours, so that's not too bad. I probably should have waited for my neighbour to show up at some stage, but that's fairly strong. So, all right, so I was looked at the other side, I was 80% happy with it. Okay, I thought I might be able to go with it once we fiberglass this. It'll be plenty strong, but I'm looking at this, and for about 50% of this, it's missing half an inch, about 12 mil of the plywood. Why is that? So remember I said that the convex part of the chipboard, I tried to wedge it up and I did get it flat. The router was cutting in a nice straight line. That was fine, but where it was unsupported, the router's torn it away. I can't just make that up with thickened epoxy and fill it. Like, I just don't feel good about doing that. Even though I am going to fiberglass this and it will be fairly strong, that is not a good scarf joint. And I'm not pretending to be like an expert boat builder in this series. This is just documenting my build. And I do try and communicate my thought process and how I'm doing stuff and how I've done things in the past. Screw ups are just going to be part of amateur boat building. So I really do think that if I edited it out or tried to make it seem like I don't screw up, I think that would be being dishonest. So there you go. Here's a very well documented stuff up. Can I fix it? Yes, I think I can. So John Welsford, the designer, in his wisdom, has made this bottom panel 4,700 millimeters. So it's still 4,800 at the moment. The two sheets of 2,400 together, 4,800. I still have that length. So that gives me 100 mil to play with. So this scarf, I can cut this 72 mil failed scarf out, have a nice straight edges, hopefully, re-scarf it, put it back together, and I should have a few millimeters up my sleeve. So, whew, I can just imagine when I'm using this boat in the future, being somewhere out at sea, the weather's turning a bit crappy, and I just think back to the shortcuts I took and corners I cut, and that would just be a horrible feeling, so I'm trying to avoid that. So if you're thinking, just glass over it, no one will ever know, that's true, but I will know. So if you're still interested after this debacle, join me next episode. I will gloss over how I'm going to fix that. I'm just going to put a sound flat bit of wood with the ramps and do it again. And then we'll get to actually cutting this to shape. But I'm going to have to just end this episode unusually on a failure. So if you've got some great advice for me and the people that like to read the comments section, head over to the comments, drop me a line. If you've done this before, I'm pretty sure I understand what I did wrong, and so do you. But I'm getting a real goldmine of wisdom from the people that are contributing to the comments, and I really appreciate not only the time you take to watch these, but then going over and writing a comment. It's been really fantastic, so thank you for everyone that does that. Again, thank you for everyone that supports us in any way you so choose, whether it's a thumbs up, a comment, financially. It's been wonderful. We've just had some new patrons, so thank you, welcome for joining us, and we're thrilled to have you on board. And I'm just going to have to catch you next episode where I fix this up and the boat build continues. There you go. Troy screwed up. I'll make that the title. Screwed up.